Checkout tracking by the NPD Group brings you a receipt collecting system that gathers data anonymously through technology we created, providing your businesses with answers.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on a Thursday afternoon here. And I have been covering the game industry for almost 20 years now. And when they said, would you like to moderate the ASO panel, I said, what is that? And so anyway, but kind of coming up to speed quickly here. And yeah, I think it's very sort of, interesting, key, and sort of increasingly important section of the industry now. And I gotta actually get my my whole set of questions back up. So while I'm doing that, I'm gonna have the panel introduce themselves. So anyway, please start here. Yonatan.
So hi, my name's Yonatan. I'm the VP of Inbound Marketing at YellowHEAD. We're a digital marketing agency. We do App Store optimization and user acquisition for big developers in the casual gaming world and outside of it, working with Jeet at Playtika, I've done a lot of work with Zynga, MobilityWare, all kinds of others. At YellowHEAD, I'm in charge of the ASO team, the ASO research team. I'm here representing the agency perspective, but at the same time, I'm a little bit of an evangelist for just doing ASO, whether you're doing it on your own or with an agency. It's a crucial channel, and I'm happy to be talking about it.
Great. So I'm Jeet Niyogi. I'm the marketing director at Playtika Montreal. I manage the marketing for World Series of Poker, which is currently the #1 downloaded and #1 grossing poker app in the US and many other countries. All thanks to ASO, just kidding. So no, Playtika is behind such hits as Slotomania, Bingo Blitz, House of Fun, Caesars Casino, and recently we launched a free-to-play poker site, playwsop.com, and also Vegas Downtown. So check out our games. We have been an ASO-aware organization amongst the early adopters, I would say. Gaming in general has been in the early adopter stage. We have used our good friend here, Alex's tool, Sensor Tower, to optimize and seen some good results. I'll tell you, I believe in it. I'll tell you why shortly, but very excited to be a part of the panel.
My name is Blake Pollack. I am the CMO of the ASO project. Again, a competitor of YellowHEAD over there. No, we come from the agency standpoint as well, and we work with more of the enterprise level clients, kind of high-end developers on the enterprise level. And yeah, happy to be here.
Hey folks, I'm Alex Malafeev. I'm one of the two founders of Sensor Tower. Our flagship product is our App Store optimization product. We have some other products in kind of the mobile intelligence space as well. And happy to be here. Kind of ASO was something our company evolved into. We started building the very core of the product to solve our own problems, but eventually it turned into a company, and we work with a lot of folks in gaming, outside of gaming, and we provide them with the software platform to do App Store optimization.
I forgot to mention that GamesBeat is having its own conference on October 12th and 13th this year. I put some cards down in the back, and actually you can get a 15% discount if you use the code DEAN15. So anyway, anyway, why don't we have somebody sort of take a crack at introducing the topic here, like why is App Store optimization significant? Like, why should it be on the radar of developers, the radar on the people in this room here? And
I'd love to start.
Okay.
While you guys are figuring out why.
Take a shot.
App Store optimization, and the parallel to draw here from the web world, of course, is search engine optimization. But App Store optimization encompasses how your users are actually finding your applications inside the App Store, the Google Play Store. And it's a very important thing that nobody really spends a lot of time thinking about, of course, more sophisticated companies are going to spend for advertising money, but typically what happens is a developer or a publisher will spend a couple of $1 million developing an app, and then it has 17,000 users, and their only channel for acquiring is through paid acquisition. And the App Store landing page, the visibility within the App Store itself is not optimized, and that's where App Store optimization comes in. It's a set of techniques that helps you acquire more users and internationalize your app and increase your conversion and so on and so forth. And if you don't care about users, then App Store optimization doesn't matter. But for everybody else, it's something you should be paying attention to.
I think I think that's perfect. I think a few statistics to kind of support it. They're up there on the slide. Recent studies have shown over 63% of users find apps through search. The representatives from Google Play have said that search actually makes up the majority of installs for most applications. Despite that, I guess in addition to that, there are over 3 million apps today with over 5,000 new ones added every single day. And despite all of that, 83% of apps are virtually invisible in search, cannot be found in keyword rankings or category rankings unless you're searching directly for them. So it's something that's growing in need, growing in competition, and growing all around.
So it's getting harder to find your app, and the alternative of user acquisition is getting more expensive now.
I'll just throw in one comment. Yeah, I mean, I just was reading that I think 300 million searches a week come through the App Store. And it's probably the only sort of marketing technique you can use where people are searching for you, similar to SEO. Mostly with paid acquisition, you're kind of targeting an audience and blanketing it. Where if a user is looking for a specific product and you show up, that's usually a very loyal user.
I like to break it down into two parts. I think, and beyond what you guys said, I think even when you do marketing campaigns and paid campaigns, people come to your landing page. And there's a huge element. Within less than 5 seconds, you have to convince why he should stop everything and download your app. He hasn't downloaded yet. So that is where an ASO plays a key role. And I think the second part everyone talked about, to increase the discoverability of your app to relevant users. Users that want to play poker. I mean, you have to. They should search the relevant keywords and find you in the high positions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how about more about why are we here? Like, why does this require maybe a lot of expertise, I guess? And then maybe Blake, do you want to start going through some of these slides as well to explain some of that?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the? If I can find it. Mm-hmm. So yes, me and Jan actually put together a couple slides of obviously the importance of ASO, and similar to, as Alex mentioned, SEO. A lot of people are familiar with SEO for websites. ASO is extremely similar for apps. Jan, maybe these are a couple of your slides. If you want to go through a couple of these ones.
You want to back up one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's just the overview. Very basically speaking, it's different, but ASO is like SEO for apps. You're working on increasing discoverability, as Jeet was saying, but then also, as Jeet was saying, working on increasing the conversion, making sure that once people actually make it to your pages, they want to install your application. This is something that is, I think, still growing as part of this, but is massively, massively important. A little bit unlike SEO, at least at the moment, results with ASO are pretty immediate and they're pretty dramatic. So you have a sample there of a number of keywords for an application we worked with, and you can see really almost the instant that you make changes, things change on the ground. And if you click through one more time, and then at the same time, things change very quickly as far as installs go. So something which we'll also touch on and talk about later. There are two sample graphs here. The top one shows an optimization process in the US. It's tough to see there, but it starts off of a base of thousands of installs per day, where a number of well-executed but relatively simple changes led to 30% increases. And then another interesting graph, we'll talk soon about localization. That's an example of an increase in Germany. Most applications still haven't really capitalized on localization properly. So in that kind of place, we're seeing increases in literally hundreds of percents across dozens of different languages. I think the next slide is you.
One more.
More graphs. No, so what I'm showing, what we wanted to show with these is really ASO is great, but it is not a standalone thing. ASO works off of your other channels. It works off of what you're already doing, and so you have another example, an application that started with a base of several thousands and then went up by several thousands of installs per day. And then on the other hand, you have an application which started out with only a handful, 3-4 downloads per day, and made it up into the 20s. You know, if you're talking percentages, it's a huge increase, but ASO on its own is not going to take a 5 install per day app to a 10,000 install per day app.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you can see that. Okay, there we go. So this is a couple of our slides of our clients that we have. I think we've differ a little bit from Jan's company, and we're strictly performance based. But one thing that's really important to understand with our slides is that optimization is not a one-time thing. So this is a good slide that shows kind of what we've done with a client with one optimization, and you can see there's obviously a pretty big increase there. But there's a lot of testing that goes on, and so you got to test what works, what didn't work, and tracking kind of how those changes affected where you're ranking and installs. And so this is a client that we worked with that has after the first one you can see the uplift. After the second one there's a bigger uplift, and I would say after like a third optimization is when we're really hitting it really hard, at least for us. So you learn from each optimization. I think that's probably the last of it.
So they can't just fire you after the first time they use you guys?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
So,
right.
yeah.
Okay. So, so Jeet, does this, you're a developer, the other guys on the panel are sort of outside vendors. Does this resonate with you? Do these results suggest,
Absolutely. I think the core to the bottom of it, it's as someone said, it's not just ASO. I mean, it's a combination of things. As we learn more about the algorithms, I mean, deposits, engagement. So at the end of the day, a very solid game will keep. I mean, and one platform, Google, even takes care of uninstall. So you can't just convert and see a huge jump in ranking. It's a continuous process, and it is combined with every aspect of a good game.
So who wants to sort of throw out some examples here? Like, remember, I guess, the age of keyword stuffing, but how should, in this sort of more advanced day and age, people think about keywords on iOS, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would keywords, at least in my opinion, are probably one of the most important aspects, obviously, of ASO. I mean, we had this conversation actually the other day, and we were saying, how hard is it to implement ASO into your app as a developer? And the reality is it's not hard to at least the basic, which is kind of keyword, title, description, that kind of stuff, is very easy. You can learn it in 5 minutes. In my opinion, the toughest part is figuring out what you're going to use in those spaces. So, we have kind of some tricks that we use so that we don't duplicate keywords and that kind of things. And you
get only 100 characters to use, right?
Yeah, in iOS you get 100 characters, and in Android there's no keyword field. Mm-hmm. So you got to optimize the description and the name of the app.
I think for the first part of your question, we definitely were seeing, we've been doing this for a couple years, and we were seeing in the beginning this was still like the wild west of SEO in the 90s. It was all about keyword stuffing, just putting in keywords as many times as possible in as many places as possible, and the bottom line is it was showing results.
Apple search didn't seem to work anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, Apple search is a little antiquated. And as time is going on, I think things are getting more sophisticated, both because we are getting more data in terms of analytics from Google and from Apple, and also because people are starting to move beyond simple keywords, starting to remember that branding is also a thing, and start to look at really the conversion side, and so it's slowly getting more sophisticated.
Yeah, one thing to add, I would say, is a lot of people say, well, what if I just put in, say you have a gaming app and I put in, Facebook or some highly searched term, is that going to help? And in our opinion, number one, it's extremely obviously competitive, but number two, more importantly than anything, is that that's not the user that you're looking for. And so just to, downloads are not as important as obviously a really targeted user. So you want to make sure you're using the correct keywords, not just trying to, because you can really put in anything into the search engines, or sorry, into the field, the keyword field.
Yeah, when you're kind of thinking about how you're marketing your app from a search perspective, and consumers at the end of the day are searching for some sort of app, and of course the more places you're showing up for, the better. But it's an optimization strategy. There's a limited amount of terms that you can show up for. It's really about figuring out what are the most relevant things that the kind of user you're trying to get through App Store optimization is looking for, and kind of targeting those, and then figuring out, okay, let's say I have a mid-core title, going and taking what Game of War and Clash of Clans are using probably doesn't work for you unless you have similar kind of budget or similar kind of level of installs already. So it's really important to think about what is relevant for you in that specific case, for your genre and for the strength of the application that you have.
So it seems like you can apply a lot of common sense to ASO, but there's also some science here and analytics as well, right? Can you guys talk about that, and maybe some of this new A/B testing that is possible now?
Yeah, it is a science as well as an art, and I think where we are different, or how we have grown in the last few years, is it has enabled us to make a lot more data-driven decisions. So, like in every field, the fact that we have these data, we can test things out. And thanks to technology such as Sensor Tower, and there are other players as well, you can take certain actions in an update and then see the results. And as a marketer, app marketer, you know your baselines, you know which campaigns you're running, and you can see a difference in the organic installs, and you can attribute some part of it to the changes you made. So I think that is the biggest difference, or where we have grown. And thanks to technology, we can make, marketers today can make a much more data-driven decision.
Do you have an example of analytics at work, or things you have to measure here?
Although I love San Francisco, I have to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So no, I know. We can share.
Generally,
a lot of it we can't share, but some of the stuff. I think one area was phrases of keywords, and we put through tried some combinations, and then we were able to notice in Sensor Tower where we were ranking before, so the pre and the post, and we certainly saw a jump in our ranking, which can then be tied to, if you're a marketer, your variable baseline is, and we saw some organic uptake because we used a certain combination of keywords in our space, and not just the most common like free poker, but the best poker, whatnot. You have, you can do a ton of experimentation, and experiments like this, when combined with the data and technology you have, you can see a lot of differences and measurable difference.
So we've been working with a number of different tools, a number of different things. We also use Sensor Tower and like Sensor Tower, and have both the store intelligence, which offers keyword tracking and stuff like that. The app intelligence, and also the store intelligence, which gives you data on, or approximated data on, the number of installs different apps have. So one of the things we do is a few people in our ASO team are designated to research. And what they're doing most of the time is running regression analyses on the App Store to try and sort of reverse engineer and figure out, of all these things that you read online, titles are important and descriptions are important and this is important, but what does that actually mean? Does it change things if you bold words? Does it matter if they're in the beginning of the sentences? Does having keywords in your publisher name help? And I think as time goes on, we're starting to understand those things a little bit more, and a little bit more specifically what the impact of what we will do is. On the other hand, on the other side of things, there are starting to be rumblings about sorts of keyword tools for app stores. These are mostly not coming from the app stores, but coming from other apps that have SDKs that are looking at users and figuring out what's going on there. So there are all sorts of things like that which are making it more scientific. Also, I think Dean mentioned the A/B testing platform. So Google launched a few months ago an A/B testing platform for the Play Store, where you can on a regular basis test icons, screenshots, all that kind of stuff. And that's another area where things have gotten really, really scientific. And there you really can say, okay, I am increasing my conversion rate by roughly 26% or something like that.
Cool. So can you talk more about differences between Google and Apple?
Yeah, so, you know, kind of, you think Google is a search company and Google does things pretty well, but, you know, what you're seeing as far as App Store optimization, on one side is really great and Google is ahead, like Yonatan mentioned with A/B testing, but in other senses, Google is really far behind. At least Apple, kind of like, you know, the days of Ask Jeeves or AltaVista or the old search engines let you designate like what you want to show up for, and it's straightforward. You know, you're saying in the United States I want to show up for these terms, in Germany I want to show up for these terms, and you're able to optimize the keywords that you're ranking for your title. You know, you have 100 characters to put in there and so on and so forth. Google indexes a whole bunch of things across, you know, descriptions and so on and so forth, and it's very difficult sometimes to know, hey, my app is about, you know, weather, and why am I not in the first 400 results of weather, right? So in that sense, Google is really far behind, but in the same time, as far as the, you know, the developer tools that they're providing, they're really far ahead of the game in terms of allowing publishers and developers test different creatives on the landing page of the App Store. And a lot of the time what happens is people take those learnings and translate them also to iOS, and they're kind of double dipping in those improvements. But, you know, in the general sense, consumers at the end of the day are going to pull out their smartphone, go to the search tab within the App Store and search for some sort of phrase, and that's where the keyword or search-based App Store optimization comes in, and you want to rank really high. You want to rank in the top 10, top 2 ideally, and those things are similar across iOS and Google Play. And you want to figure the best relevant terms for your app to show up in.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people look at is what are my competitors using, and how do I, you know, I should use their keywords. At least our philosophy is there's a lot of demand out there. As we said, 300 million searches a week. There's a lot of demand out there with a little competition. So how do you find those keywords? And so we've kind of, at least at the ASO project, we've created, you know, a technology over the last 18 months to help find those words. Again, you still, of course, you want to go for those kind of bigger, more generic keywords. But there's a lot of opportunity of what people are searching for that, and they're not finding what they're getting. And you may notice that sometimes you're searching for an app and there's no results. And so it's not just, you're not the only person searching for it. There's a huge opportunity there.
I think coming back quickly to the original question, the iOS versus Google. I heard a talk by Ian Sufferman. I think he put it really well. You have to look at the history of these companies and where they came from. So Google comes from the world of search. They look at things. They look at users and what your friends like and all those things. And they're you know, they scan reviews and look for keywords and reviews and all sorts of things. And on the other hand, you have iOS, which comes from the world of music. So there you can search for a song title or an artist or maybe a genre. So it's a significantly less complicated world, and iOS is still in that place where they're saying, show me what you are about, tell me what you are about, whereas Google comes a little bit more from the, I'll figure out what you're about, don't worry about it. And of course there's ways to work on and nuance both, but it's something worth keeping in mind at an eye level.
So one thing I wanted to figure out is how deep does the rabbit hole go here? Like, you know, if you're a 700-person company, how many people should be concerned with ASO? Or if you're a 10-person development studio, do you need anybody looking at this? Or, you know, just grab an outside consultant like one of these guys. Like, so can you guys address that in some way? Like, how deep is the expertise that's possible?
I think there are a lot of factors in play. It's the genre is an important factor. The maturity of your studio, where you are in the cycle, how big you are, small. I think typically what works for most companies, I mean, if you're a small developer to a moderate sized, yes, it probably is not very the greatest idea to do it in-house. You can go outside, but I think you can still use of a tool. I think the biggest thing people can do in marketing department is raise awareness around ASO. Every marketer should be aware of what is going on in ASO, follow the best practices, research, get a tool. I mean, you know, we use Sensor Tower, but whatever is relevant. I mean, they were one of the earlier ones in the space. And when you're not doing it inside, obviously help from YellowHEAD ASO project is great because they have dedicated resources, and not all companies can afford that. But once your size becomes bigger, we are not that small anymore. We have dedicated resource behind it in the marketing team. We try to follow what's going on. We try to map out, keep an eye, using Sensor Tower of how we are tracking for different keywords and phrases, what changes are happening in the algorithm, not blindly chasing algorithm, but making it relevant. I mean, relevance is key for conversion, and we focus a lot as a whatever your strategy is, however you define relevance in your organization, that is what your ASO strategy should be around.
And you're revisiting this when you're changing apps or updating apps, or the App Store changes itself?
Updating apps is the best time to do it, and all the different levers of what we know today, which is certainly going to change tomorrow, are being visited. Mm-hmm. Just like the SEO world, everything changes. I mean, what is a key driver today might not be a key driver tomorrow, so you have to be aware. Research best practices, you have to be aware on top of what is important today.
How many people do you actually have working on ASO in WSOP?
I can't share everything. I said I have to go back to work tomorrow. No, it's we have one thing is it's not an everyday thing. You dedicate certain percent, 30%, 40%. It depends on how often you update your game. Because around a week or so, I mean, you can, when you update your game or decide to do the changes that you want to do, you can take a look at all the different levers and make the decision around then. But update cycle is a good.
Yeah, I was going to say that's another good thing to bring up, and obviously if you have both iOS and Android, you probably know this, is that iOS, you have to kind of change around your name and keywords and optimize it on the update, versus Android, you can kind of submit something and then a couple hours it's approved. I don't know what you're seeing, but at least what we're seeing is there's a lot quicker results from iOS than from Android. From the optimization, even though it takes 2 weeks for Apple to approve your app, and it takes 2 hours for Android. So, but yeah, as you said, I mean, I know with some of the bigger companies, they have schedules of when they're releasing the app, so or releasing the next version. That's I think where you have to kind of get ready and figure out what you're doing next from an optimization standpoint.
I also wanted to add kind of where the industry as a whole has moved. 2 years ago, you'd go on LinkedIn and you'd search for App Store optimization. There'd be hardly anybody that even mentioned it in their marketing bio. And kind of what we've seen over time is the number of marketing professionals, whether they're product marketing managers, growth teams, UA folks, they've slowly started acquiring these skills, whether they're bringing it in-house or working with somebody else outside. But we're seeing a very, very strong trend towards this expertise coming inside companies. And what we also see is a lot of the companies are hiring specifically for these kind of roles as well. You go to the job section of any major gaming studio, they probably have a couple of positions open where they're one of the requirements, or even maybe the primary function of that role, is to work on App Store optimization. And these are kind of signals of, here are the folks that are the most sophisticated in the industry. They're the ones that really know what's going on, and they're the ones that are driving revenue and downloads. Here's where they're focusing a lot of attention, and it's because for them, from an ROI perspective, these are things that are no-brainers. They make sense.
I was going to throw in one. So I know myself and Jan, we come from an SEO background, and so when we look at the most successful websites, e-commerce sites, anything like that, we look at kind of where the revenue comes from on a very successful SEO campaign. And when done correctly, some of probably the top 100 e-commerce sites, more than 60-70% comes from SEO. And so eventually ASO is going to be more, it should be really, really important to everyone, but eventually everyone's going to realize that it needs to be extremely important, because it can be the biggest driver of, obviously you can always pay for more installs, however, the LTVs are what's important.
What about some other things that you can influence, like say ratings, reviews, pictures, the screenshots that you use? Anything to say about?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think you can split those those into a few different parts. I think if we start with ratings and reviews, that's one of the ones that we've gotten very interested in the past while. We saw, did a case study on this. We saw an app which I will not name, which we are not working with. It was a social casino application, and they launched at some point of time a prompt to their users, which said, rate us 5 stars or we will remove 500 coins from your account. And now, of course, there's no way to do that. Apple doesn't give information on how well users have reviewed you, but the average user doesn't know that. And the outcome that we saw of that was that we were looking at them, and overnight they went from having like 3 or 4 positive reviews and 1 negative one to having like 600 positive reviews per day and like 3 negative ones. And the negative ones were all like, you wanted me to rate you well. I'm not going to rate you well. And what we saw happen directly after that, and it's a little bit of a testament to how the app stores aren't seeing things like this yet. But directly after that, this was a relatively unknown application, and it jumped on major keywords, slots, casino, all those kinds of things from 150th place to second, third, things like that. So there are a few things which have massive effect there. It's going to be your actual star rating, but the truth is if you look at most of the top applications, they have somewhere between 4 or 5 stars. So it's not, it's important, but it's not like you have a massive amount of room to maneuver within that. But the number, the volume, the velocity of reviews that you're getting is something that's massively important, and that gets into something where you get into the product side as well, right? Because you don't want to annoy your users, you certainly don't want to manipulate your users. So there's a little bit of a fine line, but it's something that we've definitely started looking at more. Anyone else?
Apple is cutting back on that. We've had apps we've worked with where they incentivize users, like you said, to post reviews, and we've had apps actually kicked off the App Store until that was erased from the app. So it's a thin line because a lot of people still do it. Coin-based systems, doing like a social media post or anything like that, they'll give you coins. But Apple will I'm sure they'll cut down on it more and more because they want the best experience for the user. And so the best experience for the user is not something that manipulates your way to the top.
And screenshots, anything to say about that as well? Just the images you're using.
I think I mentioned in the first part, I look at it as 2. I think it's very, very important when people have reached your landing page to convert, and screenshot is visual. It has to have relevance. I mean, if I got the user that far, I better have something to change to get them to install my app in the first 5 or 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. They're putting videos now, and it's working out well for some of our other publishers and friends. So yeah, it is. I think it is an important part, and the what's new and the description. The description is very important on Google. We all know that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get to the top of different searches, but the reality is if no one's converting, we can help get you to the top. But I think overall, icons, screenshots, everything should all be considered an optimization technique because, like you said, if we can get you up there and people will see it, but they're not going to convert. So you have to optimize the screenshots, what we consider optimization, to make it actually the click-through rate, people actually clicking on it and downloading.
We were talking about this just before. I mean, there are a few things. A lot of companies have gotten advanced enough to realize these things now, but still, every once in a while, you'll go through and you'll see a major application. I can't remember who it was that said this, and their first screenshot will be like their login screen or something. So there are basic things here: adding calls to action, marketing messages, obviously making them look aesthetic. The guys at StoreMaven, an A/B testing platform for iOS, came out with some interesting statistics that users are split into sort of 2 groups. It's about half-half. There's what they call instant decision makers. So these are people who make it to your store page and they either right away hit the install button or they right away ditch. The other 50% are explorers. And so those explorers are going to look through your screenshots. They might even look at the description, though very few people actually do that. And you have to cater to sort of both. And those screenshots, if you're not putting the time into them, then it's something that you're just leaving on the table.
I've seen it's funny you said a login page, an app that I've worked with that was their first one was a login page, and after we changed it, they went from I think it was 300 downloads a day just with without changing keywords or anything, they still ranked exactly in the same position, but the screenshot changed, and it was that first screenshot too. It went to like 2,500 a day. So it was a massive, massive increase, and that's just straight conversion. That's not getting you higher and keyword related. It's not higher, but so it's extremely, extremely important. And all these aspects obviously fall into at least ASO in my opinion.
So I'm gonna.
And to add to that, right? Apple recently released their iTunes Analytics product, where they actually show a lot of the data on the conversion from the App Store page to download and install. And we looked at it. We have access to a ton of developers and publishers, and we looked at this data in aggregate, and there were very dramatic changes between some folks. Somebody might be converting at 40%, while another application might be converting at like 6 or 5%. And those are very, very dramatic differences that not only do they affect your organic users and the folks that are coming from App Store optimization, but they're also affecting all your paid acquisition campaigns. And these things are always kind of dynamic and changing as well. When iOS 8 came out, now if you had 2 screenshots that were side by side, now the user would see both of them. So we saw a lot of companies kind of try to play with making the 2 screenshots work together, and so on and so forth. So it's really important to react to the changes in the App Store as well, and stay dynamic and reactive.
So I'm going to ask for questions in a sec. So start thinking of your question. What about localization? That's my last topic for you guys, I guess.
Sure. So within apps, particularly within the world of gaming, the reality is it doesn't really matter where your user is located for the vast majority of the applications that we deal with on a daily basis. You don't need to be able to, you don't need to speak English in order to be able to get along with the application. That being said, if you look at users, if you look at users in Denmark, people in Denmark speak excellent English. They certainly won't have any problems using applications, but it may very well be that they're searching for poker or searching for slots or searching for whatever else in Danish. And if that's something that you haven't invested in, then they simply will not find you. I think that App Store optimization, particularly again in the world of gaming, is making it easy to really go global with relatively minimal effort. It's way different than the world of SEO, where you'd have to go and get an agency to help translate and culturalize and everything your website. And it's not just translation in App Store optimization. You have to do keyword research in those languages. You have to figure out what people are looking for. So there still is expertise and time and all of that, but it's an easy way to get way more market share. The last thing I'll say about that is some of the applications that we work with. When we start off with them, we see that 80–85% of their installs are coming from the US. And besides that, it's a little bit of UK and Canada and Australia. And then after a localization process, you see that goes down to 50%, 40% of the pie, just because they've opened up the doors to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and to add to that, right, localization is not really that expensive unless your app has books or lots of text, and it's one of the quickest ways, if you're not localized, to get to those international audiences. And if you look at kind of the data of the really top performing applications, whether it's Clash of Clans or Candy Crush or anybody, their downloads, their revenue, it's not like it's 2012, it's 80% from the United States. It's very much spread over a whole bunch of locales. And I'm sure, Jeet, you guys are seeing that as well. And that's because you're putting in efforts into localization, both from App Store optimization, but other perspectives as well.
Yeah, the way I see it, it's a two-pronged strategy. Again, dependent very much on the genre of the game. Even you can't put all games under the same category. It's just the sub-genres are very important. The two prongs are, do you want to, is your strategy to localize and culturalize this game? I think from all the experiments, if you have a localized, culturalized, plus you're localizing it on your ASO side, it works very well. Poker doesn't need a language, but and many games, regular games that were invented hundreds of years ago, do not need a language. But in those cases, absolutely, localization on the ASO side is only going to benefit, in my opinion.
So questions from the audience here. Okay, and do we have to hand over one of our mics for that? Yeah, I think.
Okay. We're going to start here.
I have a couple quick questions. One, I was first noticing you can change on Google right away, you were saying, but sometimes Apple even updates faster, and I heard the Google Store doesn't fully index everything for up to 30 days. How far in between time periods do I make changes before I can see if it's helping in the result or not? Like, how long do I wait after a change before I can make another change?
We like to not optimize more than once a quarter, at least personally for our clients. We believe there's a marination period. Even though iOS does make the changes pretty quick, once you put in like new keywords and everything like that, you can see the changes quickly. However, once people start adding more reviews again, because your reviews reset every time on iOS, every time you submit a new version. So we like to see kind of a marination period where, finally the reviews are back to where it was, all the keywords, and they all kind of come into place together. I would say no more than once a quarter you should be optimizing. At least once every 3 months, that's what we do.
And one more, I've heard a couple things from,
I wanted to add an alternative viewpoint, although we do look at a lot of other titles that take an opposite approach on iOS and do iterate very quickly, and they are able to get reviews very quickly. These are larger apps that have a lot of users, and they iterate. They have a bi-weekly release cycle, and every time they're doing that, they're going to change something. A lot of the time, what they might do is they might change only a couple of countries in Europe, not everything altogether, because it's just a lot of work and effort if you're doing a whole big rehash. But again, on iOS, you only can change this metadata during a release, so you might as well take advantage of it somewhere.
And the other quick question was other things that are taken into consideration that I've heard from sources that I can't say are reliable, so I'm curious. I heard like with Google, if you want a keyword, use it 5 times in the description, not more, or they kind of cancel it out and separate them, and words and reviews people leave, which seems like that's accurate. Is that still accurate? Do they do that?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of tactical things that you can do, and shorter descriptions on Google are one of those things. You don't want to have 5,000 character long description, and there's a whole bunch of case studies out there that can be very helpful. Really, the number of kind of tactical things you can do is very long, and this is why it kind of requires a bit of expertise.
Mm-hmm. So, and then just real quick about that, from as far as we've seen, it's not a numerical time. It's not 5 times or 8 times. It's a keyword density thing. So if you have a 200-word description and 30 of the words are your main keyword, then that's not going to go so well for you. What I would suggest is do your keyword research, know what keywords you want to use, and then use them in the text in a way that they're there but still is natural to you, in a way that it doesn't feel overdone.
And I just wanted
Let's get another question in. You can.
Good question.
Go ahead and tell them afterwards.
Hi. We started diving this in a big way, and we really appreciate Sensor Tower, because what we're finding is that there are keywords that are very well searched. I assume that search frequency is measured in the first number in Sensor Tower, and yet there are also keywords that are searched for a lot, but just aren't in any of our apps, or very few apps are using them. So we're taking the approach of doing that with relevant keywords. My question is, won't eventually this sort of normalize out? Well, everyone will figure out that they don't have to use, a particular keyword that every competitor is using. They can find a word that's being searched that's very similar to it, but no one's using. Won't eventually just all level out, or Apple will eventually figure it out? And the other question I would say is, isn't Apple sort of weighing this on the frequency of downloads of the app as well? Those are 2 questions.
So first of all, for the second question, the way that we see an app's ranking for any particular word is just we call it strength times relevance. So strength is how many downloads, how many installs you have, how many installs you're getting on a regular basis, ratings, reviews, all of that stuff. But then on the other hand, there's the relevant side of it. If you haven't optimized for something, you're just not going to be there. And then for the first question, I think that's a great strategy depending on what you are. If you're going for the smaller keywords, then at some point in time you're also going to hit a ceiling. But at the same time, if you're a small application, you're not going to be able to be ranked no matter how well you optimize for those top keywords.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Sure. I'm just wondering, do you see this in general, ASO, becoming less effective over time in sort of the near-term future as more people get into it? Like, should we kind of be keeping it a secret instead of trying to get more people into it? Or how soon do you see that being potentially an issue?
I don't think it's going to be less effective. I think it'll always be extremely important. If anything, it'll get more important. What I think you'll see is it'll be more complicated. So they'll start taking other factors, but right now, keywords and that stuff is really easy to do. But I know from Google, they're so sophisticated, their algorithm on web. Eventually, they're going to be really sophisticated on mobile as well, where they'll take in, who knows, but probably some SEO tactics like link. They already do take in. We've done some testing on it, some link building, which is an SEO tactic, really. And so I think it'll always be effective, but it's going to be more complicated.
And to add a little bit to what Blake is saying, as it becomes more complicated and as more companies are doing App Store optimization, if you're one that's not doing it, it's kind of a little bit of an arms race. So it moves towards an equilibrium. But if you're not paying attention at all, then you're kind of falling behind what everybody else is up to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is there any tool that'll give us visibility into how often a certain keyword is searched for? That was kind of assumed in the question over there, but I don't think that's true. Do we know how often keywords are searched for?
So the short answer is no, not directly. What it is that the app stores don't release any of that information, so there's no way to know exactly. And I think Alex might be more qualified to answer this later, but I think tools like Sensor Tower use a whole bunch of different information, including the Google Keyword Planner and the number of apps that are found for any certain thing to try and sort of estimate that. Then on the other hand, there are things that aren't quite fully baked yet, but there are all sorts of, for example, keyboard apps that have SDKs that look at what users are searching for and then are starting to figure out aggregated data for that. But those are things that are only kind of half there so far.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, the full numbers are not released by Apple or Google, but everybody's working on using the best proxy signals to get to that.
Okay, last question.
Oh, sorry, he's got one first, I think.
Can you just speak to the different pricing strategies and how to differentiate between the different vendors, please?
I feel like that might be good to take offline after. Happy to talk about it, though.
He's already said he's performance-based, right?
So yeah, I think so. We work on a monthly retainer on an ongoing basis. Blake.
We're strictly performance-based, so we come up with a baseline for the client of where their organic is, and we charge on a per install basis above it.
We're a SaaS platform with a whole bunch of prices from
Yeah.
free to enterprise.
I think just one to finish off. So the primary differences between the Apple and the Google algorithms, and how often do you see them being updated, and how big are those updates?
I would say Google is constantly going to be changing it. Though a lot of times you'll see like an algorithm release in Google that will be announced. They're probably updating it, I would think, on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. At least that's how they are on web, and I'm sure they'll get there to that point. iOS, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, they're just not. It just doesn't seem like they're anywhere near as sophisticated. So they'll probably throw in like a change here and there, but.
Yeah, and, there used to be quarterly releases after Apple acquired the Chomp team, but they've seemed to slow down and kind of there's not a ASO shakeup happening every quarter or so anymore.
I think just one last point on this is that we get a lot of questions as a developer. What did you do? What did you not? I think being on top is one thing, but chasing algorithms is really not. If you make your landing page relevant, and again, if you want to attract the guys that you really would retain and monetize, you got to put the description which is relevant for those type of users that you define in your strategy sessions. And that is one of the key things. Yeah, absolutely. Do all the things that people are doing, but just chasing it will not. Because I mean, just like the SEO world, engagement, monetization, all of these are components being added, and Apple won't be behind it. Google obviously knows this very well, so it is going to catch up. And yeah.
So let's do a show of hands. Who believes ASO is worth paying for to get expertise on it? Well, pretty convincing there, guys.
That was a good session then, huh?